Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Murphy's Law. I am live again because last time that was a lot of fun, so we're doing this again live. Thank you for joining me. So I was going through episodes and there was one caller who just kept calling in, and it wasn't persistent like every single week, but it was kind of spread out over the course of almost 2 years. Well, let's introduce him. Jeffrey in Pennsylvania. Jeffrey in Philadelphia. Jeff in Philly. Jeff in Pennsylvania. Jeff in Pennsylvania. Jeff in Pennsylvania. I'm pretty sure that's the guy we're talking about. I was going back through because often as I go back and watch the calls, and especially with repeat callers, I look for patterns. You know, the reason why we don't take Otangelo anymore is because he's on the same script every single time. And so do we have that with Jeffrey? Well, Jeffrey's called in about a lot of different things. But there was something that kind of intrigued me at the end. I remember of the first of these clips that I was watching.
Oh,
we did.
I love you guys still.
I love you guys still. The conversation really didn't entail that, but it kind of went there, which was weird. But also it kind of struck me in a weird way, and I didn't understand why. It was almost kind of familiar. Anyway, as I'm going through, I'm just seeing this repeated over and over again. This isn't the reason that he called. This is just kind of spread in throughout. And so you just see it in other calls later on.
Why do I even call? Because I love you, man, and I love V.
Oh. So, well, geez, that, again, it's super familiar. It's almost like that's a recurring pattern in Christianity. Yeah, I don't know, but it's definitely worth checking out. So let's see what is going on in Christian culture. Let's see what's going on kind of under the hood as to why someone would call over and over again, and during those calls profess their love. Well, so first thing is I'm going to pick on C.S. Lewis. V, if you're here, I'm picking on your boy. He wrote a book called The Four Loves. And that book was very, very influential, especially in churches like mine. He talks about these 4 different kinds of loves. And the first is storge love, and that is the kind of familial love that you have for your family. The next is the philia love, and that's kind of the friendship kind of love you have between, between others that aren't your family, that you're not in love with, but just, you know, those close bonds of friendship. So that would be the philia love. There's erotic love, which I don't think needs explaining. And then there's something called agape love. Now, agape love is interesting because agape love is supposed to represent the love of Christ. So how can that be different from familial love? How can that be different from friendship or romantic love? Well, it has a couple of trademarks. And mind you, these aren't things that I'm saying exist and are out there, but I do want to culturally contextualize this, because I think that if we don't, we're going to miss a lot of the point. We're going to miss why we got here. And so some of the big touchstones for agape love is that it is undeserved. Right? Loving someone even though they don't deserve it. That's supposed to be just this big, powerful, amazing thing. I don't deserve God's love, but God is giving it to me anyway. Second, that you are choosing that kind of love, right? That it's not something that you are required to because, you know, they're your family, and it's not something that's going to, you know, float away if the romance goes away or the friendship doesn't work out. It's that chosen piece, and that it's unconditional. Well, we're going to put a pin in that condition, because I would contend that the unconditional part, the most famous part of the agape love thing, actually doesn't apply to God at all. But we'll get there. So anyway, I'm going back through, and well, I'm watching more, and it just continues.
I wanna say that I love both of you guys, as I told you before.
Yeah. It's almost as if it's worked its way through into the culture and the music, isn't it? It's interesting. Well, so is that what he's talking about? Is he talking about, just that book? Was that book really important to him? Well, what does it say in the Bible? He's a Christian, and the Bible is important. It is the guidebook that you're supposed to go through. Well, in John, I mean, I'll get to John in a second. There's the idea of God's love. And God's love is supposed to be this agape thing. The most famous line, the one that everybody learns right off the top, right at the bat, right in preschool is, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, John 3:16. You can check it. There's plenty of other examples. Paul wrote letters out the ass to so many different other groups, just talking about the love of God and the love of Christ. So does this guy think that he's God? Maybe. Does he think he's Christ? Well, I don't think so, because there's another piece to it. He is placing himself as this personal ambassador. Well, here.
Jesus, the one that I'm following, he inspires me to reach out to both you guys in love.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm inspired. He's inspired to do it. You better believe I've got another clip. By the way, big trigger warning for ex-Christians. Sorry, but this is a time to go over why it's important. There's this personal call to become an ambassador for Christ. That there's this love idea, and that you need to demonstrate that love in your everyday life for other people. In fact, what do I have in Matthew? It says, love thy neighbor, right? There are so many different places in the Bible where it talks about that. Now, let's be clear. Why? Why would you want to show that you love the receptionist at your work? Why would you want to take the time to show your neighbor that you love them? Why would you want to do that? Why would you perform this kind of connection that you don't have? Well, because there's a lot to be gained from it. You see, it was something that was kind of permeated everything. And I had such a hard time putting my finger on it, because how do you relate back to that as an atheist? How do you relate back to those lived experiences? Well, I remember hearing different men at my church in particular saying, I'm having such a hard time loving these people. And that's kind of it, isn't it? You see, it's this commandment to be kind, and I think it's conflated with love. And I think when you conflate love, there can be real damage. I came from a church that was very, very loving and did that. And over time, I wind up finding out that was a tool that a good number of people used to guilt and shame and hurt. Yeah, absolutely. It's so freaking problematic. So even if we were to take it just as a personal relationship, right? You have this jealous God, right? Oh, another clip here.
He is jealous for me.
Is that something good to have in a relationship? To have that kind of jealous? Is that something that you strive for? No, it's something that you work to prevent, right? It's something that through communication you try and fix. But that's not the case here, because in a bad relationship, there are some really big red flags. Red flags like gaslighting, right? Red flags like trying to make you feel like you're the most important, special, kind person, that you're just needed, to say, it hurts me so much more than it hurts you to hurt when I have to hit you because you misbehaved. Now, that's something that we do. Not me, but definitely in our society that we see. It's a terrible, terrible kind of love. And yet that's what we see on display right there in the Bible. It's you're commanded to love. Why? Because if you don't, you're going to go to hell. You're going to suffer. Or you'll take the personal responsibility of preventing, you could have prevented your neighbors from suffering if only you would have been a better person. It's atrocious. So we get this problematic piece, and it permeates. People wind up filling their entire lives with it.
Oh, you're everything.
And I get it. I do. But sorry, it's taking me. You know what? Let me just play the next clip.
I have trust and faith in what Christianity teaches, which is it prioritizes love for that creator and love of my neighbor.
And that's exactly it, right? There's a tactic in cults called love bombing. It's when someone is just surrounded by other people who just drown them in emotion, in care and love, and when you get that feeling, it's just it sucks you in. It's what sucks a lot of people into cults. Christianity and other religions, they're not immune to that. And so why does it prick at the back of my neck when somebody calls in to say, oh, I don't know you, but I love you? Well, I'll tell you why. Because I don't think you do. I think you're doing that because you think you're commanded to, because there's this cultural piece of needing to be Christ-like and show that, oh, I need to love my neighbor. Why? By the way, how fucking condescending can you be? The idea that you own love in any way that other people don't own. It's atrocious. So you want me to tell you a little bit about God's love? Tell that to the Spanish. Tell that to the French and the Jesuits. Tell that to every country who wanted to spread God's love at the end of a sword to colonize different countries. It's infuriating, because that love is an envelope that's used to hide a lot of poison. And that's what we see over and over again. And so I've got my little, inner Christian hat on, and I can tell you what I would have said. And I would have said, well, that's man, right? That's not God. Well, God does it himself too. I agree. Do you think that somebody, just because their child made a mistake, should lock them in the basement and burn the house down?
Hell no.
Then your God is not a loving God. That's right. If we want to show that kind of love for each other, number one, mean it. There are a lot of people who I wish that I could have incredible friendships with, right? Let's go back to, C.S. Lewis here and the Four Loves, right? There are a lot of people who I would love to have friendship with. That doesn't mean I can be everybody's friend. And I think that it is terrible to tell somebody that you're going to be their friend when the only reason that you're doing that is so that you can draw them into your cult. There are a lot of people who I'd love to experience a romantic connection with. Same thing. And when it gets to this agape piece, I don't think God fits the bill. I don't think that even in the book itself that God meets that description. So, Jeff, buddy, if you watch this video, and I really hope you do, I think that you're doing your best to be a good person. And I think that you're doing that by following what culturally is being told to you. You're in circles where being told that you just need to demonstrate this overwhelming love for people. And if you do that, then you are being a good person, right? I don't think that that's something that you're trying to do maliciously. It just happens to also be a malicious tool. It is used by cults. And I've brought that up in other calls, but no, this idea, because he's not dropping it. It's not stopping, right? He thinks that every day he must go to the mountain and profess his love, and someday the evil atheists, these hard-hearted, closed-off people will slowly soften and eventually relent and understand and bring it. No. You're not a martyr. So quit acting like one. Anyway, I would love to be able to get into the arguments, but this was enough for an episode. Because if somebody is saying they want to be Christ-like, and they're taking that and saying that they want to be a good person, what they're doing is they're trying to co-opt being a good person. You can do that in your own life. And if you want to call and you want to have a friendship with me, fine. But don't go out of your way to try and pretend that you love me, because it's terrible. That said, I think that's about it for me today. Click here to subscribe. If you like what I do and you want to support me on Patreon, click here. And if you want to watch what YouTube thinks you want to watch next, go ahead and click here. If you're watching this live, those aren't there, but I will put them in after the fact. Take care, everybody.